And welcome back, and today we have a very special episode for you. We're going to attempt to make a Viking spear using a technique known as shear steel and not using any modern materials besides the wood. We don't know if it will turn out quite right, but enjoy. To begin working on a Viking style spear, first we have to select our material. You see, there was no modern steel back in the 8th or 9th century, so what we'll have to do, we'll have to make some of our own steel, and my choice is blister steel or shear steel. To make it, I'm going to select this pure iron bar, and I'm going to cut it into equal parts. Then, I'm going to place those equal parts in this pipe. I'm going to either use refractory cement, clay, or K-wool on both ends and pack it full with charcoal and these iron bars. And then I'm going to stick it in the gas forge and let it bake there while I'm working on the wrought iron, which I will use for the socket. And hopefully, since I've done it a number of times before, the gas forge will let me know when the metal is fully baked by releasing a flame and spark motif out of the front.
While our pieces are carborizing in the propane forge, Ilya is now moving to the charcoal forge to begin forming the wrought iron socket of the spear. To create the width that we need for the socket, Ilya is going to be holding a fullering tool as I strike with the sledgehammer to spread the material. With the material now spread to its final width, Ilya now moves on to beveling or chamfering the edges of the socket where the forge welds will occur. This is a subtle and often overlooked detail in making spears, but it's very necessary to ensure a good forge weld. It's now back to striking to initialize the form of the socket. Ilya now moves on to using a mandrel to finalize the shape of the socket. The mandrel is roughly the shape of the haft that we'll be mounting the spear on later. With the socket now formed, it's time to check and see how our carborization is going. It should be about time to quench and pull out our pieces.
Now that we got our pieces, it's time to spark test them. Fortunately enough, I kept one of the original bars as a control. So this is pure iron, double aught, as pure iron as you can commercially buy for blacksmithing purposes. And we will test these against this. So let's get over to our grinder and check the control. Then the shear steel.
As you can see, iron has almost no spark at all and is very orange, and high carbon has a very flamboyant, very yellow spark. The result of this test has concluded that we have indeed turned iron into steel.
Now that I have my shear steel, I selected 4 bars of iron that went into making that shear steel. That way the alloy is basically the same except for the carbon content. So I have 5 bars of steel and 4 bars of iron. I'm going to stack them as if it were Damascus, except this time I'm going to clamp them and make 2 brackets. When normally you see us using a MIG weld to connect the pieces together, we're just going to use iron itself and hold them. That is a very old school way of forge welding builds together, and it goes to Soligan manuals and probably dates even further back.
With the clips now in place around the billet, it's time to start heating it up. It's important to note that once you make shear steel, it's important to continue working with it in charcoal or coal to be sure you don't have any carbon loss out of the material. Basically, that could result in turning back into regular iron. With our billet now forge welded and drawn out into a bar, it's time to begin twisting it. Ilya will have to be careful that he twists the bars evenly on both sides, or the pattern will be dramatically different.
In modern folklore, you see the Viking sword as well as the axe being exquisitely romanticized. However, it is the spear, or basically a knife on a stick, as well as the axe too, that served the major function in military tactics as well as hunting and food gathering.
It's time to turn our straight bar into the core of our spear blade. To do that, we initiate the bend on the anvil, move to the power hammer, close it up.
Just like you saw us carborizing the iron to make the twisted core, we're now going to go ahead and carborize some wrought iron as well as the iron bars we had before to make the edge wrap.
We're basically tracing the same exact steps that we just did with the core of the spear. However, the wrap won't be twisted. With our edge bar now complete, it's time to wrap it around the core and get it forge welded. With our edge wrap now successfully forge welded to the core of our blade, the socket completed the shape, it's now time to join them as one. We're going to be utilizing the coal forge for this procedure because it allows us to heat up a very specific area that we're going to be forge welding.
Because the term Viking encapsulates many different ethnic groups across several centuries, consequently you see many types of Viking spears. Some are very long, some are short, wide, narrow, so on and so forth. Some spears were even elaborately decorated and you find them in burial sites sacrificed or bent, just like you see in Viking swords.
Alright, now that the spear has been forged, time to do a little bit of grinding. First thing I want to do is establish the profile, trim up here where it comes into the socket, and at the point, go around the whole perimeter and do some profile grinding. After that, I'll do a very little bit of grinding on the flats, just to prep it to be heat treated. Let's get to grinding.
Now that the spear is already formed by the grinder, it's time to heat treat it. I choose to use the charcoal forge as it can provide as even a heat as a modern electrical kiln.
With the blade now successfully heat treated and tempered, it's time to move on to the final grinding and polishing of our spear. From here on out, I have to be sure to keep the spear cool and not overheat the edges, or it'll soften up and be an ineffective weapon.
Spears from that time period range from very elaborately decorated ones to a simple version. We're going to break even and decorate the socket somewhat, but will not go overboard.
We're going to be decorating the socket of our spear with a combination of both inlay and filework. To begin the inlay process, Ilya uses a hacksaw to strike an initial line. Once the initial line is established, he can go in with an engraving cutter and turn the straight line into more of a dovetail. That way when he hammers the soft silver into it, it'll conform to the shape and it won't ever fall out. Along with the silver, we're also going to be inlaying some twisted copper wire. Now that the inlay process is complete, I'll be doing some filework. I'm going to do 2 intersecting spirals that give us the look as if there's some lacing spiraled down the haft. Now the only Viking spear that's been found intact with its actual haft, its wood pieces, was found in the Lindbreen ice patch. And there, that spear was made out of birch, not ash. It was about 6 feet tall. It tapered from the actual socket all the way to the bottom. So we're gonna start with some hand tools and then finish it up probably on the sander, give it a little stain. And we'll have not only a very strong spear, but a correct one. This has been a great build. We've wanted to make a Viking spear for a long time, and we learned a lot along the way. I think it's pretty safe to say that this spear will not be the last one made on That Works. Thanks for watching our Viking Spear build. If you'd like to purchase this spear or some other items that we've made, be sure to check out thatworks.shop. And as always, tell us in the comments below what build you want to see this team build next.